Shishi Gaur Nitai, Jai Gaur Nitai, Jai Gaur Nitai, Jai Gaur Nitai, Jai Shishi Gaur Nitai, Jai Gaur Nitai, Jai Gaur Nitai, Jai Gaur Nitai, Jai Shishi Gaur Nitai, Jai Gaur Nitai, Jai Gaur Nitai, Jai Gaur Nitai, Jai Shishi Gaur Nitai, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jai Shishi Gaur Nitai ki, Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanande. Okay, wir singen noch kurz bis der Okay, dann sind Girivara
Privacy for how to use the faith and see the signs of God, Bhakti Sister Radha, Krishna, Gopal, Gopinath, Syam Kunda, Radha, Kunda, Matula Dan Ke, Mayapanabhakti Dan Ke, Jagannathpur Dan Ke, Gangamaya, Yamunamaya Ke, Srimati Vasudeva Bhakti Ke, Samadeva Bhakti Ke, our glory is to the Son. Our glory is to the Son. Our glory is to the Son. Our glory is all glory to the glory of God.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna to our Sunday program. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us today. Herzlich willkommen zu unserem Sonntagsfest hier im Krishna-Tempel Zürich. Danke vielmals, dass ihr auch heute dabei seid. Gibt es jemand, der kein Englisch versteht? Everybody understands English, that's very good. Anyone here for the first time? Okay, welcome. Nice to see you. So we are very fortunate today, and we would like to invite His Holiness Bhakti Vasudeva Maharaj to please take a seat and let us welcome him by loudly chanting Haribo! 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 Just a short introduction. His Holiness Bhakti Vasudeva Swami is an ISKCON guru and a member of Spiritual Advisory Bhagavad Assembly called SAPA, which is a part of the GBC. He has a PhD in Applied Management and Decision Sciences from Walden University in Minneapolis, USA. He's a consummate scholar practitioner of leadership and organizational change. He has authored over 35 publications in international peer-reviewed journals and has extensive experience integrating Gaudiya Vaishnava technologies with management science. His recent Best Presentation Award-winning research presentation at the World Academy of Science, Engineering and Technology Conference in London is Sonic Therapeutic Intervention for Preventing Financial Fraud. His preaching adventures are mainly on members of the academia, professionals and youth Krishna conscious development. He is a disciple of His Holiness Bhakti Swami Maharaj, from whom he received first and second initiation, and he took sannyas, the renounced order of life, from His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj in 2009. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for coming and visiting us. Maharaj will be speaking on the topic Humanity and Humility. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Jnana Salakaya Saksu Unmalitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So Chaitanya and all this time, Sthapitam Jena Bhutali Swayam Rupam Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam. Vande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodata Buddhaya Puspavanto Chitu Chandu Tamonta. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakti. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Itinamani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvachesa Sonyavadi Pashatya Disataya. Vanchakalpataribhyacha kripasunubhyayevacha patitanam pavanabhyo vaishnavabhyo namo. So, welcome everyone once again. That already was done by Damodar Prabhu. I also want to join him to welcome all of you. In this day and age, people are very busy, especially during the weekends. Professionals, they have to go to different places where they can refresh themselves, but you've chosen to come to the temple, the Hare Krishna temple, for your spiritual refreshment, which is very good. It's a great choice. So, we're living in this material world, and in most cases, we don't seem to understand the ultimate goal of our existence. And it becomes a little bit challenging because if we don't know the ultimate goal of our existence, even our decisions may not be to our best self-interest. It's just like if someone is made the head of a community and they don't know the objective criteria of their position, of their services, then it becomes difficult to make decisions that will be people-oriented, that will benefit the people. Similarly, if we don't recognize the ultimate purpose of our existence on this planet, it becomes very difficult for us to be humble enough to make inquiries about the ultimate goal of life. Because then we think we are satisfied, we are fine. Like, in electronic configuration, we have this concept of octet electrons. The octet electrons, they don't need any sharing of anything with any other electron. You're just satisfied. But we are not octet electrons. We cannot live our life isolated, or we cannot live our life independently from the greater society, or from even amongst our immediate surrounding, immediate family, friends, etc. We are humans, we are social beings, we are interdependents. And therefore, the process of inquiries into the absolute truth, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Human beings must make inquiries about the ultimate goal of life. That distinguishes us from the lower primates, the lower animals. And for us to have the guts, the emotional courage to make that investigation, we need to be humble. Because if we are not humble, we will just not be able to understand just the very concept of human existence, why we are here, where we're coming from, who are we, where are we going after this lifetime. So, it is very important that we make some inquiries, because according to Vaishnava Vedanta, Vedanta is the ultimate Vedic literature. Veda means knowledge. Ananta means the end. Vedanta means the end, the conclusions of the Vedic literature. And the very first verse of the Vedanta says, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now we are humans, we must inquire about the purpose of life. Who can share with us about what he thinks is the purpose of life? You're coming for the first time. Can you help us?
Unification with God.
Unification with God. Is there anyone in support of what he said? I support what he said. Raise up your hand. Yeah, this is the real reality. Unification with God. But how many people know that the purpose of this life is to reunite with God? And if even they are meant to be aware of the purpose of life, what are the practical strategies that they are implementing to be able to attain that ultimate goal? And so this very approach is stipulated by Lord Krishna himself. Lord Krishna is recognized by the devatas, by the demigods, the administrators of the different universes. They understand that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Lord Krishna himself declared in the Bhagavad Gita that spiritual worlds and the material worlds are emanations from him. And no one can dispute it. If so anybody has done that, if not anyone has a counter thesis, yeah, they can present. But then you have to buttress your thesis with sufficient references. So our reference is the Vedanta, the Vedic literature. And so the same Vedic literature, we have the Bhagavad Gita. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna provides an insight on the process of learning, how to become conversant with the science of how to become free from this material world, material incarceration. How many of you are aware that this world, just see how wonderful it is? We can fly in airplanes. We can also go through submarines and live in the bed of the sea. It's a wonderful place, is it not? Is this place not a wonderful place? This world. It is a wonderful, to my estimation, it's a wonderful place. But if we examine the wonders of this world, yeah, we will really realize that, it's a beautiful place to stay. Oh yeah? Beautiful place to stay. So if it is a beautiful place to stay and someone comes to tell you it's a prison, how will you feel about that? How will you feel about that? You feel upset. Yeah. I remember the first time I went to the Hare Krishna temple. I was a young man. I was working with the Department of Justice. I went to the temple. The first Sunday I went to the temple. I got some books from the Buddhists. I went to the temple. The following weekend, I went to Tracy Temple, so on Sunday. And I had a preacher, he was talking some things. He used some words that I never had those words before. He was talking about 4 principles: no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, this. I understand the other stuff, but see, illicit sex, what is this guy talking about? Yeah, so even the very philosophy is hard not to crack. Sometimes it's just too harsh, and we get upset about the preacher. People get upset with Prabhupada. It's just too harsh. No bad. It's the harsh reality. So Lord Krishna stipulated in the Bhagavad Gita that the process of evolving spiritually entails that we have to make some inquiries from a realized soul. That inquiry must be born out of humility. Humility has to be there. Humility doesn't necessarily mean that, one is devoid of technological information culture or high profile knowledge. It just implies that you understand you are not this body. Without understanding that you are not this body, it is very difficult to appreciate. If even as your child, if you feel that you are superior, it's just born out of the fact that you think you are the body. You are judging the child based on how long you've been on the planet before the child. So, in general, parents are devoid of humility before their children. Parents, is it true of us? We're devoid of humility. We always think, the parents always think, hey, you're my boy. I know better than you. What have you got to tell me? But a humble sage learns from even his own child. Therefore, Lord Krishna mentions the process of learning. The process of learning entails humility, humbly making inquiries, the fourth principle. And it's a little bit difficult for humans to be humble. What makes it difficult is that we live on the bodily platform. We are devoid of the understanding of our pristine identity, our original identity. We tend to lose grip of that. And believe it or not, all of the wars that have been fought on the planet is basically one thing, is that the leaders are highly maladjusted. And that maladjustment is because of a lack of understanding of our pristine identity, our original identity. That we are spirit souls, we are not this physical body. And if you analyze it deeply, you find that the spirit soul is so minuscule, it's so small. 10,000 the tip of the air. So if you view it, suppose it's a material subject matter, if you view it under the highest power of the microscope, you may not be able to find it. 1/10,000 the tip of the air. But that same minute particle is what activates this body. I mean, it's like you have a chip. You put in your cell phone. Cell phone compared to the chip, the SIM card. It's very small. Cell phone is far bigger than the SIM card. But it is the SIM card that helps to activate the cell phone. And so, by nature, we are individual spirit souls characterized by knowledge, eternity, and bliss. In fact, that is the reason why we are chasing after happiness. We're chasing after happiness all over the place because by default, we are blissful by nature. But that bliss is being covered over by the most material nature, by the 8 ingredients that is composed of this body. And so even our humility is covered over by the 3 gunas, because the gunas are vying for supremacy. We have the mode of passion, ignorance, and goodness. And suppose the mode of goodness dominates our lives all the time, naturally we will be humble, because people in the mode of goodness, they feel they want to know more, and naturally they want to make inquiries. You find even we know professors are very puffed up that we find some of the professors. I remember when I was younger, I read some publication by one professor, and he mentioned something about Hinduism, and I knew that this guy was completely wrong. So I went to meet the editor-in-chief of that journal, I was a young man. At that time, I was not even having a master's degree. I was just a young devotee, but I want to meet the editor of the journal. I went to their campus and met him. I said, see, what this professor said about this stuff is completely wrong. I said, I'm not a professor, but I'm a practitioner in this tradition. It's wrong. And you know what the guy said? He said, see, we are ready to learn. A professor, head of department for English language. He teaches also philosophy. He said, we are ready to learn. Could you help to write a rejoinder and I will publish it? Let this professor know that he doesn't know everything. And it happens that that professor who published that work he comes to the temple and he's favorable to Krishna consciousness and he knows me very well. So I didn't want to create a fight. So I said it's okay. But the idea is that they're making subtle inquiries. It's that we don't know it all. Write a rejoinder, I will publish it. So imagine, say in our movement, say some new devotee, some bhakta, goes to tell a Swami or a guru that, I find something strange about what he says. Yeah, you may be in trouble, right? Yeah, so we feel that professors are very powerful, but some of them are really that they're humble enough because they want to learn. Another good example of how some of these professors want to learn, they are humble. See, I went to one conference, presented a paper, really technical paper, but it's talking basically about Krishna consciousness, philosophy of Krishna consciousness. But, Prabhupada said the scholars they're full of word juggling, and the devotee wants to juggle words, he juggles perhaps more than the professors. So, I want to make a presentation, and then my paper was published in their journal. I selected my paper for publication in the journal. So I want to pick a copy of that journal because my paper is there. So immediately I went to the office of the secretary, one young professor. So I announced myself, Ambassador Das, I want to pick up a copy of the journal. Immediately this guy started bombarding me with questions. The courtesy of, you see another scholar come to your office, sit down, what can I offer to you? That wasn't there, nothing. He just started bombarding me with questions. And the questions were good questions about spirituality. Because he understood where I'm coming from, my spiritual background. So he was asking questions to be able to clarify some things about the paper and some things about his own personal life. And when he finished, he busted out laughing and he was begging me for forgiveness that he didn't follow the courtesy of, scholar guests come to your office, you're supposed to sit him down and ask, what can I offer to you? That wasn't there. He said the reason why he had that heavy oversight was that all of the members of the editorial board were eager to meet me. Why? Because what I said, they don't know. So they wanted to know more. So he said he was the first person who is encountering me, so he wanted to satisfy his conscience so that he can be proud to tell the other members of the editorial board, hey, I met a guy. So he made inquiries. He was humble enough to make inquiries. And when I gave him Bhagavad Gita, like, look, this book, you think I know anything, but this book will give you all the stuff that you want to know about spirituality. So he was so happy. My point is that even these so-called puffed-up scholars, some of them are really humble. Why? Because humility is the first principle of knowledge acquisition. In spiritual culture, in devotional life, Krishna stipulates we have to be humble so that we can make inquiries. Making inquiries to get knowledge, to acquire information, to be built up with spiritual values, requires some form of humility. Otherwise, it's not going to be possible. And the acharyas, the guru, or even the senior devotee, will not really give his life to you if he sees or she sees that you're not humble. If you're humble, you make inquiries, you're rendering some service, the acharya will want to share anything and everything with you. What even you don't ask for, they will sit you down and, share information with you. Yavala Krishna mentioned that vidi pranipatena paripasnena seva upadeshanti te jnanina tattvadashina. The tattvadashis, they have seen the truth, they've realized the truth, and they are ready to release the truth to us. They are ready to direct us to the ultimate truth. What is required? We have to be humble. We have to bring down our major problem. What's our major problem? Yes, who can tell us? What is the major problem of the spiritualist, of the devotee? Yes.
The ego.
He's very correct.
He's very correct.
He's very right. A false ego is our major challenge. That's the major problem of the aspirant devotee. The major problem of the devotee. False ego. So, if we bring down our false ego and make inquiries from the senior devotee, so those who have higher knowledge than us, those who have been there, those who have made some waves, or the spiritual master, then they will open up to us. We also have to render service. When we render service, we are bonding a relationship. When we render service to someone, we are bonding, we are creating a bond, we are consolidating, solidifying our relationship with that person. And once the service is accepted, the person who receives the service becomes indebted to you. Yeah. So, this is it's a psychological process. Rendering of service binds you to the receiver of the service. Is it correct? The wife, the mother in the home, she renders service to the children, renders service to the husband. And that's why you find that most children are inclined towards protection of their mothers. See, in India, this is a dominant factor. If you Google on the web, you find abuse of women is very, very heavy. One of the boys who was serving me in Delhi, he told me a story. His father is a medical doctor, now retired, but he's still practicing privately. But then he said they had watched their father, their two boys, one of them, or his older brother than him. He said they watched their father abuse their mother right from their childhood. Verbal abuse, sometimes physical. So when they graduated from university, they sat the father and the mother down one day and they thanked the father. Papa, thank you very much for sponsoring us, training us in college. We are finished from the university. We are big boys now. We have watched you abuse our mother from our childhood. We've been watching you. We know it's your wife, but it's our mother. Now we are big boys. If you try anything on this woman, we will teach you a lesson. Very un-Indian, very on Indian, because Indian kids, they are very much honorable to their father, whatever the case may be. But why this boy and his brother have to go to that extent to protect their mother? Because the mother has been serving them right from when they were in the womb. So there's a bond, a very consolidated bond that has been created. That's what service does. And therefore, if we serve a spiritual teacher, we serve the spiritual master, we serve the devotee who is instructing us, we serve Srila Prabhupada's mission, we create a bond with Srila Prabhupada. He will not let us go in vain. And that requires a lot of humility. Service requires a lot of humility, because in most cases, when we are devoid of the understanding of our pristine identity, of our original identity as spirit souls, infinitesimal parts and parcels of Krishna, very minuscule. The tendency is to think that I am very great. Who are you for me to serve you? I know it all. I don't need to make any inquiries from you. I mean, it's like one devotee told me they went to Harvard University in Boston to distribute back to God. Here's a case where the fine professor really puffed up. So he said they were going around. So he approached one young man. The guy parked his car, highlighted from his car. So he approached him and showed him back to God. And this young professor, he turned to this guy and said, "Hey, don't you know Howard Professor?" In other words, see, the Howard professors are like devotees in America. They're like demigods. So he asked this devotee, "Don't you know I am Harvard Professor?" In other words, what have you got to tell me? What? I know it all. I'm Harvard Professor. So, people who have this type of mindset, it is very, very rare for them to become real humans. Humanity, culture, is far-fetched from people who are just ruled by the false ego. Because we don't know it all. Even as a professor, what do you know? You just pick a figment from the ocean of knowledge. You just specialize in one small, maybe a leaf. You pick a leaf and you conduct a research on the leaf, and you write a big dissertation of 200 pages research. So that's how you got your PhD. But you just study a leaf. What else do you know? Humility is required. Therefore, the authentic professors, they are very, very humble. I remember again, I went to a presentation at North Carolina Political Science Association, and when I made my submission, and it was accepted for presentation, later I realized I didn't have money to go to pay for the registration fee. I didn't have money to go and stay, to pay for the hotel accommodation and all the stuff. So I wrote to the organizer of the conference, the president of the North Carolina Political Science Association, that I'm sorry, sir, I will not be able to come to the conference, although my research has been accepted for presentation. He said, "Why?" I said, "I'm a priest, I don't have money, I cannot come." He said, "All right, I'll sponsor you. You come. I'll give you accommodation, I'll give you hotel, accommodation and registration, I'll do it all for you." So I went. And when I went, he actually put me in a suite with one other professor, very big suite, maybe up to the end of this building. The professor, he was on one side, I was on the other side. But that professor got to understand that I'm a monk. So he called me and said he wanted to ask some questions, personal questions. So he asked very simple questions about his life. So when I answered those questions, he was very touched. In fact, when we left the conference, when we dispersed from the conference, he wanted me to come meet his family in another state. At that time, I was in New York and my programs were very tight. So I couldn't go. But then one thing he told me was that, he said, as a political science professor, I thought I knew it all. He said, but after meeting you, I realized I don't know anything. He went on to say, in fact, I wanted to go and throw away my PhD because I realized I don't know nothing. But what is it? It's just some simple things he asked. And that is not in his field. But he was so humble and he confessed that he realized he did not know anything. So humility is required for us to grow in spiritual life. For us to grow in helping the misdirection of a misdirected humanity. We need humility. We need humility to be able to come and render service in the temple. We need humility to be able to chant Krishna's name. Trinada pi sunishena tarora pi sahishnuna amanena manadena kitaniya sadahari. Humility. If we're not humble, we cannot attain Harinam. So, we want to save the world, first we have to save ourselves. We have to throw away the false ego which has engulfed our lives since time immemorial. We have to throw it away in the garbage. And to throw away the false ego in the garbage is so difficult. It's so difficult. We get affected. If even we decide, okay, I want to throw my false ego in the garbage, we get some temptation and then we say, hey, don't you know I'm such and such? Is that the way you should talk to me? Yeah, so spiritual life requires humility. We want to change the world. We need to change our thought patterns. We need to change our mindset. But that change will not come overnight if we don't engage ourselves in the prescribed process of self-realization recommended for denizens of Kali Yuga. We are denizens of Kali Yuga. That's a recommended process for us to become spiritualized in this age. Who knows that process? Yes? Can someone help us? What is the process that is recommended for denizens of Kali Yuga in the age of Kali to have expedited re-spiritualization of our existence? Yes?
Hearing and chanting.
Hearing and chanting.
Association of the office.
Taking association, sadhu sangha, chanting, sadhu chanting, taking prasadam. Yeah, so these things, they look very simple. But see, in a moment, even hippies, potheads, they become purified. Prabhupada met potheads, hippies in America. Some of them became even Goswamis. So, we can also take advantage of this process by first having the analytical value of the fact that this body is composed of 8 gross elements: Bhumi, Apa, Nala, Vayu, Kam, Mana, Buddhi, Ahankar. And beyond these 8 elements is our real self. It's so small. It's so small. It's like a speck on a white cloth. If we realize how we are so minuscule, that will also empower us to be humble. Because sometimes we just judge ourselves based on our degrees, or based on our body, or based on our accomplishments. And then we forget that we are minute, infinitesimal jiva. Therefore, it is important for us to have knowledge to cultivate humility. It is important for us to have higher understanding of our three-dimensional values to be able to cultivate humility. I mean, sometimes people say, "Oh, but how can I be humble?" Yeah, you go out and you see people who are far better than you. Far better than you. Okay, you may say, "Oh, he has a PhD." There, see, I have friends who have 3 PhDs. Yeah. I go to places and sometimes some devotees make a comment. "Oh, he has a PhD, but he's not acting as somebody who has a PhD. He comes down to play with us and all this." I said, "See, I've seen the world. I have friends who have 3 PhDs. And they're not happy." So, knowledge implies that we have to know the difference between spirit and matter. And we are not just only matter. Matter is just what is encapsulating our spiritual identity. And so we have to go beyond the analysis of the matter, the 8 elements, and we have to appreciate the fact that we're spirit souls, part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna mentions that we are his part and parcels. Mama evam so jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana. And that should also motivate us to be humble, because if we realize that everyone is part and parcel of Krishna, then we treat everyone around us the way we would treat our spiritual master. Oh yeah. It's so easy to be humble, but sometimes we just make it complicated. And when we make it complicated, we are not able to acquire the appropriate technologies for spiritual elevation. So let's take a reflection on ourselves and be able to see how we can help the revamping of our human values in creating a sustainable humanity for intergenerational benefits. Anyone can sit on your side and speak big philosophy, Rasika philosophy. But are you humble? Yeah. I remember when I was a young brahmachari, so I had learned one thing with ISKCON Swamis. I learned one thing, that if I pay obeisance to the Swami, when I get up, I don't even get up to look at your face. I just get up and I'm moving away. Because in most cases, you pay obeisance to somebody, and before you get up, they're gone. Yes, so, see, the ego is our greatest enemy. I'm just giving you a gross example, okay? It's not something abstract. It's not, big science subject matter. We see it amongst ourselves. We see it. And when we see it, it's recommended when you see a Swami, you have to pay obeisances. You see a spiritual master, you go to meet your spiritual master, you pay obeisances. When you leave, before you leave the presence of your spiritual master, so, for instance, you go to meet your spiritual master in the room, okay? When you go, you pay obeisances. If you want to leave, you pay obeisances. If you come again, you pay obeisances. If you want to leave, you pay obeisances. Yeah, so, well, ego may not allow us to do that. So the ego is a big obstruction, okay? Yeah, so the point is that I remember, how many of you know Rana Maharaja? How many of you know Rana Maharaja? Okay. So I was in Gitanagara the time my Guru Maharaj was leaving his body. So Rana Maharaj, he came there. He's the Buddhist, very close Buddhist. So he came and one of his god sisters was hosting him. So we went to that Mataji's home to welcome Rana Maharaj. So when he came, we paid obeisances to him, and he paid obeisances back to us. Imagine exalted personality. It's just an exalted personality. He paid obeisances back to us. So I'm a talker. I don't know how to, keep quiet. So I said, Maharaj, why are you treating us like this? He said, what? I said, we paid obeisances to you, and you paid obeisances back to us? This is not good. He came quiet, he didn't say anything, so he left. But then the next day he was giving Bhagavatam class, so he raised that issue. He said, yesterday, Vasudeva was telling him that he was querying me that I paid obeisances back to them. But then he went on to explain that actually I paid obeisances to the super soul in the heart of the devotees, not to their bodies. So I cannot be queried for that. So even when we pay obeisances to somebody, it's not that we are worshiping that person. We are paying obeisances to the super soul. When we are in the ashram, we're sleeping in the same ashram, like 4 devotees, 3 or something like that, in one ashram. We wake up, first thing is to pay obeisances to each other. I don't know whether that culture is still dominant now. So, why? To practice a sense of humility for our own purification. There are so many ways we can practice to be humble. When we become humble, it becomes so easy to advance in Krishna consciousness. It becomes so easy to help in revamping the humanization of society, the redirection of the misdirected civilization of the 21st century. If you're not humble, everything becomes very, very challenging. If you're not humble, even in the home, you have quarrel with your spouse, you have quarrel with your children. And sometimes the parents, because of lack of humility, parents in most cases, they never accept that they are wrong. But parents are always, most times, wrong. The ego makes us think. I remember I was in Delhi. My friend invited me to come for a presentation at their satsang group, and someday after the presentation for the program, one elderly lady came to me, and she came to report her son to me. 35 years old boy, he's graduated, he's working, he lives with her in the same home, and she said the boy has not been talking to her for several months. I said, really? Okay. So I turned to this lady and said, Mataji, but you are the cause of all the problems. When you go back home, go and apologize to your son that you crossed your boundaries. She was shocked. She thought she's coming to report her son to his Swami. He would just, call the boy and chastise him and all this. But I know, see, these are things I studied even in my master's degree. I did education and philosophy, and a bachelor's I did counseling and language arts. So I know what parents do to their children. So when I told her this, her ego was like crushed. She was forced to be humble, to go and tell the boy that she crossed her boundaries. And I told her all the things that she was doing to the boy. She was surprised. How did I know? I said, look, forget about this family dress. These are things I studied. I what parents do. But then the next year, when I came to that place, same lady came to me to thank me. I couldn't even figure, I couldn't remember. So I said, Mataji, what? Can you remind me what? Why you are coming to thank me word for word? Then she explained that, last time she came and she told me about her child, and I advised her to be humble enough to go and beg the child to, create some reunion by accepting. So she accepted and she did that. She said it was very difficult because, she said, "Dad, we Indian parents, no, children, no." Yeah, so ego is a big problem. It creates some distrust in our families, relationships with children, with spouses, not only about spiritual life, not only about creating a better humanity or revamping humanity. The ego, we should trash the ego. And then we can recreate and revamp humanity and society. Hare Krishna. Any comments or questions? Yes?
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you for the speech. It's a personal question, and I would like to ask, sometimes I confuse humility to weakness. Sometimes I'm scared to be overthrown from others, because, for example, at work, if I don't say, for example, in a, I'm sorry, my English is not so good. In a situation.
I understand. Let me come here. I understand what you're trying to ask, because at the workplace, you have, if you tend to bend your head like this or to be humble, people try to trample on you. I understand. And the fear is there, the apprehension is there that, hey, if I get humble with this guy, they will think that I'm a weakling. So, but it's not always like that. See, you try to see that. See, in every organization, every company, they have what we call grand norms. What you should do, what you should not do. I know in some organizations in America, non-profits and for-profit organizations, you can't even chase anyone for sex in that premises. Some premises, you can't smoke, you can't take alcohol. These are grand norms. Now, anywhere you work, understand, read their books about their grand norms. If somebody comes, trespasses those grand norms, get the person notified. That is humility. Notify that person that, look, this is against the grand norms of this organization and you have trespassed it. Please, next time, don't do it. You spoke to me like this. I felt hot. Is there some reason for you to do that? Maybe if you share your reason with me, I may have to adjust myself to suit your purpose so that we can get along as co-workers and have a better loving relationship. Humility does not mean that you just keep quiet and everything and then you just tolerate and smoke and then you get traumatized. No. Humility means being true to the fact with proper attitude. Proper attitude. I'll give you an example. A girl, 8 years old girl, this happened in Laguna Beach in America. I went there for a class. I was in the West Coast and I went to Laguna Beach. So on Sunday, we just finished the class. And a gentleman came to me. I was sitting on the outside. He came to me and reported himself. He had abused her daughter very heavily one day when he came back from work. He came back from work. He had a lot of troubles in the office that day. Now, we call this passing the buck. Someone hurts you outside. Then you bring that hurt at home, you pass it to your spouse, you pass it to your wife, or pass it to your children. So that day, he had a lot of fight in the office. He came back home, and then for no apparent reason, he started insulting his 8-year-old daughter. The girl kept quiet. That's humility. But it doesn't mean that she is weak. Hear what happens. She just kept quiet all through. She was proactive. Internally, she was processing the whole situation. How am I going to help my father? She was being abused. And it's very un-American, because that situation will just warrant the girl to call the cops, and straight the father goes to jail. She didn't do that. In other words, she was proactive. Now, she was able to condone the situation humbly. Some days have passed. Father was happy. She was happy. They were eating. She raised the issue. Dad, you remember the other day? You came back from office. You did this to me. You did this to me. You did this to me. You insulted me heavily. Did you have a fight with someone in the office that day? The father was so much ashamed. He said, yes, darling, I'm so sorry. Now, look at the situation. This girl was humble enough. She condoned this situation, but she did not stomach it. She did not swallow it. She vomited it out to get relief from the trauma. She confronted the father in a humble way. This is how humility works, and it creates better, sustainable relationships.
Thank you.
So if someone is just trying to poke you in the office, no. You may condone it, but address it when their temper calms down. Okay? That's how I want it.
Excuse me. Is it
Huh? Okay. So, in the absence of any other comments or questions? Okay.
How can I recognize the ego, false ego in me?
Oh, okay.
And what must be accepted in order to become free from this?
Okay. This is a very nice point, very nice question. How can I recognize the false ego in me? And what are the strategies to mitigate the false ego, to, remove the false ego from my life? It's a very nice, it's a powerful point. Now, you can recognize the false ego by your disagreeability with anybody and anyone about what they say. Whatever someone says, you disagree with them. If they may tell you the best thing, but you just want to show them that, no, I know better than you, get out. So, this is false ego. False ego also, you can, I saw this when I was a teenager, when I was in high school. There was one guy, in fact I knew two guys. They walk like this. And then as they were growing up, they developed hunchback. Because that becomes part of their, physique. So false ego also means you can identify someone with false ego by the dint of how they walk. They walk and raise their hands like this, or they walk and bend your head like this. Another point is, if we think that we are this body, that is false. Anytime we act based on our bodily instincts, that is false ego. So if even the mind dictates something to us, we have to analyze it, evaluate it based on sadhu, guru, and sastra. That's a scale you have to put whatever the mind tells you on the scale of guru, sadhu, and sastra, and see whether it tilts down the other way or this way. Then you can accept it. But otherwise, if you act based on the mind and the senses, the pools of the mind and the senses, that is another false ego. There are so many ways. In fact, the whole of our activities in the material world is impelled by false pride, false ego, thinking we are the bodies. As soon as you begin to think, identify yourself with the color of your skin, that is false ego. Because false ego simply means identifying with what is not your original identity, or subscribing to dictates of the sensory modalities and the mind that is based purely on identifying a false identification that you are this body.